Good morning, traders, and this is your Aussie day trade setup for today. So if you haven't seen Saturday's video on the small account, suggest you watch it. I'll put a link in the description for you. But essentially what we'll be doing from here on out or in, or however you want to look at it, is we'll be trading a small account to see how we grow the account. So we're going to try and trade this along the same principles of somebody that would be working a full-time job. So in other words, not having any time to be staring at the charts all the time. Okay, but also maximizing as much profits as we can based on what the time available. Okay, so we'll keep the balance of the account up here. So that's where we are, and then sort of every week we'll do a review on it as well. And essentially the instruments we'll be trading will be the Aussie, Dax, and the Dow Jones. And occasionally some of these other instruments is here, but that's more on the odd occasion than anything else. Anyway, let's just start with what we see here. So there are a couple of things which are pretty much materializing right now. So the first thing is we are still testing this trend line break. The trend line break coincides with the 200 EMA, which is right there. And you can see last month we were really battling with the 200 EMA, and we're right kind of back in that environment at the moment. But the alligator is starting to turn, so this could be a pretty serious trend change. Alternatively, and depends how you look at it, that was the original triangle. We had a fake out, then we had a break, and now we're back at the apex of the triangle. And this is pretty normal price action. Okay, so often when you get a triangle break, price comes back to the apex. And this will now define whether this is a fake out. This genuinely wasn't a fake out. So a breakdown below this, the triangle to the downside, would then verify a fake out. Okay. At this stage, this is just pure messy, and it's not something that I'm really interested in trading right now. And if you look at the 3 hour, you'll see what I mean. We're flirting with the 200 EMA for pretty much the whole week, and then we got a close below it. So if we just come to the weekly, you'll see we had a big rejection bar here from the weekly, and now we are pretty much back in the alligator. Now the weekly gives us a bit of a different view, and I think what you need to actually do is do that. So the weekly view is basically back on the alligator now. So we've tried to break through, we broke through, we've come back, we're now testing the break. And then you look at how we're climbing up. We're still below the zero, so there's nothing really to write home about at the moment. But this could, we find support in this area, then we should get a pretty strong move back to the upside. If we can't find support here, then this bottom trend line is going to come into play. Okay, nothing really on the 3 hour except for the fact that we are below the alligator. We've got through the 200 EMA, and it is looking very bearish at the moment. So we've had 1, 2, 3, 4 tests to break the alligator to the upside, which has failed. So now what we're looking for is pretty much a break below, we can just say 50,000. It is 50,011, but we need a break below that, and on a higher time frame to validate the move to the downside. And that move should give you a fairly strong, from there, move to the downside. Okay, but we'll look at that on Ichimoku. I think that's going to be the better view that we need. Just delete that. Okay, so you can see the whole of last week was pretty messy, and to be honest with you, I didn't trade much of this. 1 or 2 little trades, but nothing really serious here. So at the moment, flat or some oscillator as well, just indicating that this thing is really confused, and it has looked like the trend. The trend is reversing to the downside. Okay. But this is the Aussie, so anything could happen. Okay, we could suddenly get a gap up, and everything could rally. And speaking of gap ups, we have 10 cents, which is up 1.8% at the moment. You have the rand dollar, which is 14.69. That's fairly flat, and nothing really on crude oil. And the US markets did have a fairly good run on Friday, with the Dow being up 0.8% and the Nasdaq was up 0.7% and the S&P was up 0.77%. So my gut feel for the Aussie this morning is a gap up. Okay, so there is a very good chance that this 50,000 is defended today, but I'm going to want to see a break above this mess before we even start looking at longs again. Okay, so for the moment, this is looking, it's looking very bearish, but it could be a bit of a trap. I want to see a break below this, and I'm going to want to see a break on the hour. So a break and close on the hour below 50,000 before I start looking for shorts. And the other side of it is also true. I'm going to want to see a decent break above this area here of 50,580 before I start looking at long-term longs. Okay. The half hour, if we just get rid of the noise. So the half hour will pretty much, it's been working out pretty much all the time here. You can see gap straight onto the range target and then hit the range target to the downside. So when we do break, I want to see if this is nonsense data. No, that's not nonsense data. So when we do break this closing range, we typically do get things playing out. Okay, so obviously the bottom here is critical, and I'd be very cautious with that. Range target on this is pretty much the 200 EMA and the previous high of Friday, which gives us 50,480. Okay, so break of 52.58, which is a closing range, would give us the upside. But I'm also cautious of that because look at this. We, in the alligator, can't get through, and then the seller stepped in towards the close, driving it back down. So I'm very cautious at the moment. Okay, we're going to have to see some trendline breaks, and that to me is pretty much going to be our first trendline break that we need to see. So in other words, this fractal here is what I'm looking for, but a fractal break to the downside is going to be telling. Okay, so in other words, you're looking for a long around there. You've got a stop of 367 points, and you're only going to be looking for 300 and something odd points. In other words, I'd be looking at this previous high top of range here to start with. Okay, so let's just switch across to the Ichimoku and start with the 12 here. So the 12 is, okay, that's bullish, bearish, bearish. So we got mixed signals, and we're at bottom of not bottom, but we're testing a pretty strong resistance level. If we start moving up on the half hour, bearish, 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 nothing really to write home about. And I think this trend line is something that you do really need to keep in your mind here. Okay, you could get your gap up, but then you could run down. This 50,000 is definitely something which the bears are trying frantically to break, and the bulls are trying to defend it at the moment. If you look at the hour, I said it last week, the size of the cloud is massive to the upside. And it's going to take a big effort to break through that, so that's a lot of resistance to the left. And that is still continuing, although it is starting to thin, but it's bearish, bearish, bearish. Everything's bearish there. And on the 4 hour, everything is bearish as well. And we are below the alligator. Okay, so bearish, bearish. The fact that we're below here is bearish, this is bullish. I still want to see, for me to continue being bearish, I'm going to want to see a break below 50,000. And then we can start looking at some setups. The daily, fairly interesting. We've broken below Keynesian, which is a minor bearish signal. Everything else is bullish. So yeah, I think for me this is a sit on my hands and watch something else. But by the looks of things, all the instruments that I'd like to trade today, there's no real good setup. So there's a good chance that we probably won't even put a trade in today. Okay. So anyway, guys, not much valuable information today, except the fact that the markets are confused, and we need to trade them accordingly. But if we do get this break here of 50,000, I think the short is on, a pretty decent short. So, and looking at Ichimoku on all the time frames, everything is kind of bearish. Everything except for the daily, but everything else is bearish. So, to me, any rally would be worthwhile getting in short, so long as we don't get a close above 55.85, 55.90. As long as we don't get a close above 50,590, then I think the buyer should be to the downside. Okay, I think that's kind of my view at the moment, but I really don't like trading ranges like this. I much prefer trending markets. But at this stage, this is a range, but it could be a massive, massive fall. Talking about another 2,000 point trade if we do get through to the downside. Okay, so anyway, guys, that's my view at the moment. So pay attention to this because I think you're probably going to get a gap up and a bit of a rally, and then Europe's going to open, and then we have to wait and see what Europe opens. And if we sort of hover around this area here and then start moving down, that'll be pretty interesting. And the DAX has got a very similar pattern at the moment, except the DAX consolidation is at the top. So it does look like it could be potentially rolling over as well. But anyway, it's not really crystal clear at the moment, so you're going to have to watch these levels. Okay, anyway, guys, no, it doesn't help you much, but I hope it helps you a little bit, and we'll catch up with you later. Cheers for now.